Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw is apologizing to the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, and its surrounding communities following last month's train derailment and toxic chemical spill. Shaw testified yesterday before the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, promising to, quote, make it right. But what does that mean? NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has details.
I want to begin today by expressing how deeply sorry I am.
Fully expecting a bipartisan grilling, Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw started with an apology and a promise.
We're going to be there for as long as it takes to help East Palestine thrive and recover. That's my personal commitment.
But when senators asked for specific commitments to cover residents' medical expenses for exposure to toxins and lost property value, the railroad exec kept it vague.
Will you commit to paying for long-term medical testing for people in the impacted communities?
Senator, I'm committed to doing what's right.
Will you commit to compensating affected homeowners for their diminished property values?
Senator, I'm committed to do what's right.
Well, what's right is a family that had a home worth $100,000 that is now worth $50,000 will probably never be able to sell that home for $100,000 again. Will you compensate that family for that loss?
Senator, I'm committed to do what's right.
That is the right thing to do.
Shaw said the company has already pledged $21 million to help the area, insisting he runs a safe railroad. But as he was speaking, word of another Norfolk Southern derailment. 30 cars in Alabama. No injuries and no hazmat spill. Over the weekend, a Norfolk Southern train derailed in Springfield, Ohio. Again, no injuries. Also under fire for its response, the EPA.
Why did it take weeks for the EPA administrator to drink the water he repeatedly told residents was safe?
The EPA did report that East Palestine air and water samples continue to test clean. Norfolk Southern has had 20 hazmat spills over 8 years. The railroad industry averages one a month. Ohio Republican J.D. Vance took aim at members of his own party who oppose new railroad safety regulations.
We have a choice. Are we for big business and big government, or are we for the people of East Palestine?
Shaw says he'd support parts of the new regs, but not all.
Norfolk Southern runs a safe railroad, and it's my commitment to improve that safety.
Tom Costello reporting there, and joining us now, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, who also testified before the Senate committee yesterday. Senator, it's good to have you with us. What did you think yesterday as you listened to Mr. Shaw saying he was going to do the right thing again and again without offering specifics? What more would you like to hear from him?
I hope before the hearing, and I appreciate yesterday when you talked to Misty and Jessica, I was actually in the hall speaking to them as Shaw was doing his testimony, but I watched it last night. I was hoping two things. I was hoping, one, that he would make everyone whole, not do the kind of dodging questions, as you said, and as Senator Markey and Senator Merkley showed in their questions, that he would make everything whole. That means down the road, if someone gets sick from one of these chemicals 2 years, 3 years from now, that they would pay medical care and all the other things that he owes people for the terrible disaster that his company called. The other is I would have hoped that he would have said, yes, I will support Brown Vance. I will support this legislation. It's past time that railroads have stiffer, tougher, better safety rules. But of course, he dodged that question, too. So I was hopeful, but not confident that he would do those two right things instead of the apology, I assume, was heartfelt. But I don't know. I can't read anybody's heart, of course.
So, Senator, you mentioned we had Jessica and Misty on yesterday, two residents of East Palestine who really laid out on our show what it's like to live there for the last month, what it's been like in the wake, the concerns they have. One of them has 3 children, the other has 2, how they're going to continue to live in a place. Yes, the EPA is saying the water and the air are safe for them. But do you take that at face value and just put your kids back into a house where there's been a toxic oil spill? What has it been like for other residents you've spoken to there?
Well, when I go to East Palestine and talk to people, I hear the same things and exactly what you said. And well, for instance, I was talking to a woman who has a farm 4 miles from where the disaster occurred, and she has 25 beef cattle. She has regular customers. She sells a side of beef to every year. And she said she's getting calls from a number of those customers saying, is it safe to eat this meat now? And she doesn't know what the answer is, but you can bet that lots of people are gonna look somewhere else in this case. So it's the soil, it's the water, it's the air, it's the home values, it's getting your life. All they want is to return to the lives they had prior to February of 2023. And it doesn't look like Norfolk Southern is being all that helpful for them to do that.
Senator, I assume that the air in East Palestine no longer smells like a swimming pool, which it did before. You have worked with Senator Vance, at least in parallel, in trying to represent your constituents in East Palestine. Do you think there's any chance of a bipartisan consensus on tougher regulation that could prevent future disasters like this?
We've got our legislation, Brown-Vance. It's got 3 Republican co-sponsors, 3 Republican sponsors, 3 Democratic sponsors. Senator Vance and I are leading the charge on this. He's heard the same things when he goes to East Palestine as in anywhere around Columbiana County or that part of the state. He hears the same things I do, and we came to agreement on this. He is having trouble getting some Republicans who believe, frankly, in no environmental rules, no worker safety rules, no consumer protections, no protections for the community. They just don't believe in rules and regulation. I thought Senator Vance kind of took him to school when he looked at the Republican side and talked about that. We're going to get 60 votes in the Senate. I think we may get 65 or 70. We will have every Democrat. We will have at least enough Republicans. And I think people look at this, I mean, the anger and the frustration coming out of that community, because they all recognize this is a very profitable company. They hear now that Norfolk Southern laid off more than a third, 38% of their workers in the last 10 years. They know the immensely profit. They took billions of dollars in stock buybacks. All of those things just point to the fact that this company cares more about profits than it does our communities in Ohio and around the country. And that's going to be enough, I think, to tip enough Republicans to say, sometimes government rules and regulations maybe do make sense, or maybe just the political pressure of whatever it takes to get there. I think we're going to get 65 votes in the 60 to 65 to 70 votes in the Senate, and we keep the pressure on in the House. And this has a legitimate chance of becoming law in making those, for the first time, holding railroads accountable to the public, not just to their stockholders.
Yeah, this is one of those places where politics shouldn't even play into it. This is pretty clear cut what's going on here. And as you say, that legislation is bipartisan. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, I'm sure we'll be talking to you much more about this as it moves along. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks very much, of course.